Hey guys, welcome to part 3 of testing New Worlds. In the first half of this video, we're going to go in depth on healing mechanics, focus scaling, and some bugs that we found there, as well as how Fortify works. That'll be very useful for everybody who is using both the Life Staff and also the upcoming Void Gauntlet that we got a chance to test on PTR the other day. And in the second half of this video, we're going to talk specifically about Life Staff, both in its current state and the changes that are coming. We'll talk about which perks are good, which ones are bugged, which you should be looking at, and what you should be avoiding. As always, check the description below for a timestamp table of contents. We're going to start off by talking about two distinct categories of healing increases that you should be aware of. The first one is outgoing healing. So that's any heal that you cause generally by the Life Staff. And then there is incoming healing, which is going to be any sort of healing that you receive. And you can get bonuses to both of those separately. Unfortunately, even though you are causing heals with things like Hatchet and Great Axe, these things generally will not benefit from outgoing healing, despite having the word heal in some of the perks. So for example, if I make a crit with a Great Axe and I have this perk and I heal myself for 10% damage done, this does count as a heal received for incoming bonuses, but it does not count as an outgoing heal for outgoing bonuses. Most of the Life Staff skills, or as far as I'm aware, all of the Life Staff skills, however, will benefit from both. So you get the outgoing bonus as the healer, and you get the incoming bonus as the recipient of that heal, whether it's yourself or somebody else. So the interesting thing about these two categories is that they are additive within that category, but they multiply together. So basically what that means is that if you have two additive bonuses, let's say you have a 10% bonus and another 10% bonus. If those are additive, then you just do 10 plus 10 equals 20, and you get a total of a 20% bonus. However, if those two bonuses are multiplicative, then you do the 10% bonus first. So in this case, we'd go from like 100 to 110, and then we would increase that by another 10%, which would take us up to 121. So with the additive example, we go from 100 to 120. With the multiplicative example, we go from 100 to 121. Now that's not a huge difference, but the more of a bonus you get, the bigger of a difference this becomes. If we have a 50% bonus in both categories, if these were to be additive bonuses, we would go from 100 to 150 to 200. If these are multiplicative bonuses, we would go from 100 to 150 to 225. So basically, the more healing bonuses that you have in one category, the more effective the bonuses in the other category become. If you have a lot of incoming healing on yourself, you will be buffing the heals or the bonus heals that your healer has from their outgoing healing multiplicatively the more of that bonus you have, and vice versa. The more outgoing healing bonuses your healer has, the more benefit you will get as the recipient of that heal by having things like the divine perk on your necklace that increase the heals you receive. So I'll throw a bunch of examples up on the screen here of which type of bonus falls into which category. A couple things to point out here. The heal reduction that you get from the Hatchet disease, the 30% reduced healing efficiency, that counts as a negative incoming healing bonus. So what that means is that that is still in the incoming category and therefore additive, or in this case, I guess you could say like subtractive, with other incoming healing bonuses. So if I have a 50% bonus to my incoming healing from standing in a sacred ground and somebody throws a Hatchet disease at me, that 30% isn't actually reducing my overall healing that I'm receiving by 30%. It's just subtracting 30 from the 50 that the sacred ground is giving me. So I still have a 20% bonus to my incoming healing if I'm standing in sacred ground and I've been hit with a Hatchet disease. So, if you're trying to decide if it's worth staying in that sacred ground or not, when somebody's about to throw a heal debuff at you, in that specific instance, the sacred grounds increase to healing would actually outweigh the loss of healing that you would get by taking that Hatchet disease. Now, when Void Gauntlet comes out and there's even more reductions to healing, one of the Void Gauntlet skills has a armor perk that reduces healing efficiency by 50%, so that would completely cancel out the bonus that you get from the Sacred Ground. So just sort of keep in mind those interactions when you're deciding, where you should be positioning in those large fights. Now that we understand these bonuses, the rest of your healing is basically going to come from 3 different places. So the first one is your actual weapon damage, which is going to go up based on the item level of the heal staff that you're using, and it's going to go up with the points that you put into focus. The second thing that the game is going to use to determine how much you're healing is the multiplier on the skill itself. So right now, Divine Embrace will heal for 150% of weapon damage. This is going to be changed in the beta, or in the PTR, but for now it's 150. So theoretically, the game should be taking your weapon, multiplying it by 150, and then calculating your incoming and outgoing bonuses after that and getting your final heal. However, there is a very confusing additional stat, which we believe is referred to in the code as heal scaling, which is basically a hidden heal-only bonus that you get from focus. So this bonus starts at 0 if you have 5 focus, so it doesn't kick in at all if you don't have any points into focus. But once you start putting points into focus, not only is your weapon damage going up and therefore your healing going up, there is another secondary hidden scaling system that is increasing just your healing without increasing your weapon damage. It's very, very confusing, and there's been a lot of debate on whether or not this is a bug or it's intended. I personally cannot see how this is intended for a variety of reasons. First of all, it's not referred to anywhere in the game at all. It's not referred to in the UI. There's no healing power stat, and there easily could be. Like if they wanted there to be a healing power stat separate from weapon damage, all they have to do is just stick a heal power somewhere on this screen. There's plenty of space for it, and yet it's not referenced anywhere in the game. The skills themselves clearly reference weapon damage without referencing any additional focus or any additional healing stat or anything like that. And it actually, this secondary healing makes it so that the descriptions of these skills just flat out lie to you. When this says that you're going to heal your target for 150% weapon damage, that's only true at 5 focus. As soon as you start putting points into focus, this 150% weapon damage number means nothing. And the more points you get into focus, the more incorrect this number becomes. So the idea that this is somehow intentional, I honestly think that there's a massive bug to heal scaling right now that the devs may not even be aware of. So if you guys can help get the word out, if this is intended, which again, I really can't imagine that it is, but if it is intended, really all we need is a healing power stat somewhere on the screen so that we can actually make valid choices about, which skills are going to be good and how many points we should put into focus, because right now the math is all skewed. I can show you guys the numbers behind this from our testing. So as you can see, the more focus you get, if the text here is too small, I'll link this in the description for you to check out. So this is on our 1.0.5 testing sheet under the Life Staff tab. And this column right here that I bolded is the one to look at. I tested this all the way up to 250 focus. And as you can see, even at low levels, you're getting a substantial amount of extra healing that you shouldn't be getting from this secondary scaling. All the way up to 250 focus, you're getting 57% extra healing that is not mentioned anywhere in your stats, anywhere in the skill descriptions. You're just healing for way more than you should. So again, this is a massive issue. I really hope the devs pay attention to this and figure this out, because it's going to throw off all the healing balancing that they're trying to do on PTR right now. Right now, they're changing massive numbers as far as like how much heals should do. And if they're not taking this hidden scaling into account, then that balancing is going to be impossible. So I really can't understate how massive of an issue this is. One other reason why I think this is not intended is because I could be wrong about this part, because I only did a few brief tests on Void Gauntlet. But when we tested Void Gauntlet on the PTR the other day, as far as I can tell, this hidden scaling is actually far more effective on Life Staff, or rather on Void Gauntlet, than it is on Life Staff. So if there is a hidden healing power stat, why would Void Gauntlet, the hybrid healing item, benefit from it more than Life Staff, which is the primary healing item? So I know that was a bit of a tangent, but I just really want to get the awareness of this out so that, the devs can be aware of it too and possibly give us some clarification. The TLDR, if none of that made sense to you, is that the focus stat is way stronger than it looks. So I know a lot of healers try to build tanky and they go high con and they keep their focus around 150, 200. I would really take a look at getting those focus numbers higher into the 200 or even 300 ranges, because that focus scaling is much more powerful than it looks. You can't just go off of your weapon damage. You can't trust what this screen tells you about your healing at all. Focus is way stronger than what any of these stats imply currently. A couple more notes about healing. Currently, the light and medium equip load bonuses do not work on the live servers at all. However, on the test server, these are fixed and they've been adjusted a little bit. The other thing that they've changed is they are reducing the weapon multipliers on life staff heals by about 15 to 20% across the board. So what this means is that currently light, medium, and heavy are all the same on the live servers. After the patch comes, heavy users will be healing for about 15 to 20% less than they currently do. Medium users will be healing for about the same of what people are healing right now on live, and light users will heal for about 15% more than what people are currently healing for on the live servers. The other thing is honing stones. There's a consumable that says they increase your weapon damage. That literally just means it increases the damage your weapon does. It does not actually increase your weapon damage on the character screen, and therefore does not increase your healing. So if you have honing stones as a healer, it'll make your life staff hit harder, but it won't actually make your heals increase. Next up is Fortify mechanics. So Fortify is actually pretty straightforward in this game. You can stack multiple sources of Fortify on somebody additively up to 50%, as long as it's a different skill that's applying the Fortify. So for example, there's a Fortify and Orb of Protection, and then Sacred Ground doesn't normally have Fortify, but if you have the armor perk that grants it Fortify, then you can combine these two together. So I have the armor perk with Fortify and Sacred Ground. I cast my Sacred Ground. Anybody standing in that will get the Fortify. I then cast Orb of Protection on the same people. They'll have both Fortifies. Both will show on the buff bar. They'll add together, and everything will work correctly. What won't work is if somebody already has Orb of Protection from a different healer and I cast Orb of Protection on them, those Fortifies will not stack. Whatever the most recent Fortify is, even if it's a lower value, will erase and override the previous one. So in this case, with Orb of Protection, it's always 10% Fortify. There's not different values. But sometimes when you're granting Fortify, there are ranges in how much you're applying. And so if you apply the same type of Fortify to somebody, just keep that in mind. It's not the highest value that it'll take. It's just the most recent value that it will take. Okay, let's dive into the actual life staff tree. So this skill up in the top left, Divine Embrace, is currently not very popular in PvP. It's got too long of a cast time and the output just isn't enough to make up for that. This is being reduced from 150 to 120 on the test server. I think maybe this skill has some use in dungeons, but overall this is not a skill that I see high-performing healers using a lot in the current meta. These perks over here in the top right, we tested these and they all seem to work pretty much as stated. Sacred Ground right here, this is probably the strongest skill in the life staff tree right now. Anyone, regardless of PvP, PvE, large scale, small scale, whatever, should be taking this skill. The perks for Sacred Ground are also incredible. Holy Ground is getting nerfed on PTR so that it'll be 50% stam and mana regen instead of 100%, but still a great perk and leads to Blessed, which is incredibly strong. All allies in Sacred Ground are healed for 50% more. The buff on your actual bar for this skill reads 20%, but it is 50. The skill perk here is the correct one. This is a increase to incoming healing, so as we discussed earlier, this is multiplicative with all the outgoing healing bonuses that your healer is going to be putting out. So just an incredibly strong perk. And then on top of that, to make Sacred Ground even better, there is an armor perk that we mentioned earlier called Fortifying Sacred Ground. That is a mandatory perk for any healer. You need to have at least one piece. Well, you don't need more than one. You just need one piece of armor with Fortifying Sacred Ground. It doesn't stack if you have two pieces. So get one piece of armor that has the Fortifying Sacred Ground perk. Anyone standing in your Sacred Ground will get that Fortify bonus that'll drastically reduce the damage they take. It's already such an incredible skill anyways. It allows people to stand in that longer and benefit from that increased healing. Very, very powerful, top-notch S-tier healing skill right now. This ability right here, Desperate Speeds, we tested this. This works as stated. Same thing with Revitalize. Both those perks seem to decrease your cooldowns just the way they say they would. So pretty good perks to look at here. Recommend taking those if you have space for them. Splash of Light. There's some healers that are taking this right now and some that aren't. There doesn't seem to be a consensus about how good this is, but as far as we can tell, the skill works as it is stated, and the perks, we tested these as well. They're not the most amazing perks ever, but they do what they say they do. This perk right here, Enchanted Justice, seems pretty awful. It does work as stated, but it's a 2-minute cooldown on a 6-second 10% weapon damage heal. Pretty mediocre. If you need space, this is a good one to skip. Intensify, this works as stated. This is going to be an increase to your outgoing healing. And then Sacred Protection, this also works as stated. It does not stack, so if you have multiple life staffs in your group, you will not get this buff twice. But as long as somebody in your group has this perk and is holding a life staff, then everyone gets an increase to incoming healing, as it's stated here. And then finally, on the left side, we have the Divine Blessing perk. This is pretty good. It does work as stated, and it will snapshot. So what that means is that if you're at 49% health, and I throw a spell that's a heal over time, and that heals you from 49 to 51 to 52, etc., you will continue to benefit from the 30% Divine Blessing bonus even after your heal goes above 50. As long as that initial effect started below half, it'll snapshot that and continue to give you the bonus until the effect ends. Before we move over to the right side of the tree, a few more notes about Sacred Ground and how these effects stack. This has been changed a few times, so this is something that could be patched again in the future, but currently, whatever the most recent Sacred Ground that's placed on the ground is, will be the one that works. So if I put my Sacred Ground and then someone else comes and casts theirs on top of mine, theirs will always take precedent. It doesn't matter if I have more healing power. It doesn't matter if I have Fortify on my Sacred Ground and they don't. None of this benefit from my Sacred Ground will continue to exist. If somebody else casts it on top of mine, then it will completely erase mine. They won't get the benefit of my perks or anything like that. So you got to be very careful. Make sure all your healers have that Fortifying Sacred Ground perk so that they're not canceling out other healers who do have it. And make sure you don't have if you have some weird hybrid healer or something, make sure they're not placing their weaker Sacred Grounds on top of people who have stronger ones. Also, the effect, the size that is canceled out is larger than the actual effects. So if we take this second Sacred Ground right here, it doesn't actually cancel the circle. It cancels about this much extra space. It's kind of hard to gauge, but the circle that it cancels out is much larger than the circle that you actually benefit from. So if you do need to overlap your Sacred Grounds, you should try to make it look more like this. I mean, ideally, you don't have any overlap at all, because even in this scenario, this Sacred Ground on the right, if this is the most recent one, this is going to cancel out let me grab the pen real quick. This is going to cancel out this much of the other Sacred Ground. So you have this space in between, right here, where you kind of just don't get any benefit a lot of the time. If this cancels out the way that it normally does, you would still get the benefit of standing over here, but this Sacred Ground is going to cancel a much larger space. So just be aware of how you're doing that and try to kind of spread your Sacred Grounds out accordingly. Moving on to the right side tree here, Orb of Protection has been changed and nerfed a few times, which has caused some people to stop using it. I think this is currently a very underrated skill. With the most recent changes, it is very easy to land once again, as long as you go all the way down and take this final perk. So if you were just taking it by itself, I don't think it's very good. It's kind of too clunky to use, but as long as you take all the perks that come with it, Orb is in a great spot right now. The Fortify that this grants is a lot longer than most sources of Fortify, and you can hit multiple people with it. You as the caster also benefit, so I think this is a very good option overall. The Bend Light perk here does work. It gives you a 20% bonus to outgoing healing. The only weird interaction here is that if you're dodging multiple times, it doesn't completely refresh the duration. So if you're too spammy with your dodges, you might actually lose this buff, but in most cases, it's not that big of a deal. You'll probably be fine. Defensive Light works as stated, but it's pretty meh. I probably wouldn't waste a point on that one. Protector's Touch is very good for your own personal protection as a healer, getting that extra 15% Fortify. There's no internal cooldown on this or anything like that, so you can keep this up as often as you're doing those light and heavy attacks. And then Beacon is a very, very popular skill to take right now. I think every top healer in my guild is currently using this, and the perks here all work as stated, especially Speed of Light. The wording here is very specific. When Beacon heals a target, it also applies 20% haste. So if you are full health, this will not give you haste, but as long as you are actually getting a heal from Beacon, then that haste will continue to reapply itself. The effect of Beacon is slightly different depending on if you're casting it on yourself or if you're casting it on other people. If you hit yourself with Beacon and then you leave the area, you leave the circle on the ground, then it will continue to heal you and continue to haste you as long as you're not at full health, and you can go as far away from the effect as possible as you want as the caster. But if you are casting it on someone else and they leave the effect of that circle, then the heal and the haste will end immediately. So it's a bit of a weird discrepancy there. I don't know which of those two is correct. We may see a buff to Beacon in the future where it sticks on people after they leave, or we may see a nerf where it falls off the caster if they leave the effect. So keep an eye on that, but in its current state, this is a very popular and useful skill. There is also a very good armor perk for Beacon called Revitalizing Beacon. If you get that perk on one of your pieces of armor, then it will massively increase the incoming heals that you have as the caster anytime you use Beacon, regardless of what your target is. So I definitely would keep an eye out for that. It's a very long buff, and it'll increase any heals that you're receiving either from yourself or from another healer. This perk right here, Protect Your Strength, I love the tooltip on this one. If you have a buff, heal for 10% more. Like, do you heal for 10% more, or do you heal for 10% more? So this is outgoing healing only, so you will not heal for 10% more from other heals, but you will cause 10% more healing when you heal to others. Except that it's not actually 10%, it's actually 20%, so the tooltip here is wrong. I don't know if they're going to nerf this to 10 in the future or if they're going to fix the tooltip and just make it 20. But this is actually a 20% increase. It doesn't stack, so if you have multiple buffs, you don't get more. It's just a one-time thing. But as long as you at least have a food buff going, this is pretty much just a constant 20% increase to your outgoing healing. So I would definitely take this under any circumstance. This will not count auras such as Spirits United and Sacred Protection as buffs. But like I said, as long as you have a food buff or something going, you should be good. Light's Embrace, however, will count auras such as Spirits United and Sacred Protection as buffs. So I don't know why the logic between these two is different, but if you're looking for some synergy there, you may choose to take Spirits United if you go with Light's Embrace just to add one more constant buff onto your group members. This does work as stated. It's going to increase for each buff your target has. You can get some very, very high single target heals with Light's Embrace. Right now, I would say that healers are split on this one. If you're healing a large group of people, like in a big clump in Siege, then you may not take this. But if you're on a flex team, or if you're doing dungeons, or if you're doing like small scale fights and you need those specific targeted heals, then this is an extremely good single target heal to take a look at. And then lastly, we've got this balance perk down here. This to me looks like a skip. The glowing focus perk, however, seems decent if you've got room for it. We did test this and it does do what it says it does. That's about it for Lifestaff. If you guys like this content and you want to see more, then please help me out with all the algorithm stuff. Like, subscribe, comment below on what other weapons you want to see us do a deep dive on next, or anything that we might have missed. If there's bugs or interactions with Lifestaff that you know about that weren't mentioned here, then let us know so we can get the word out on those. But yeah, other than that, I think Ice Gauntlet's probably going to be the next video. It seems to have the most bugs out of any weapon that we found so far. But this research does take a ton of time, so any support that you guys show is greatly appreciated. And as long as you guys keep watching these videos, then we'll keep putting them out. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Catch me over on Twitch. I'll post everything in the description, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.